depending on the device you're on, if you're on a mobile device or phone, you will need the Google Jamboard app. If you're just working off a browser, you just use it within your browser. Now, a couple things, and I'm going to kind of highlight these as we go along. There are differences between the mobile app and the browser. I'm going to be working off the browser today, but the app is actually better. There are more things you can do with it, a little bit easier to use, and I'll talk about those as we go through it. So again, if you're on Twitter, feel free to tweet using the hashtags the Summer Learning Academy or IT Camp, and share your learning and connect with others. Been lots of tweets, and I've been having a lot of fun reading through those. So essentially, we already kind of went through who I am, so we'll skip over that. So Jamboard, so what is it? So think of it as a digital whiteboard, but it has the same, not exactly 100% the same, but a lot of the same share settings as any Google app. So if you're using Google Docs, Slides, Forms, whatever it might be, what you do with those, you can do with Jamboard. The only thing you can't do, there's no comment option. So like a Google Doc where you can give it as a view only, give it for commenting, or give it editing access. Jamboard is either view or editing. There's no in-between one. But I'd say that in-between is probably the less or commonly used feature. So with students anyways, in terms of sharing that way. So you can use Jamboard in that same way. So Jamboard is the app. Jam is what you actually call the board, I guess, that you're going to work on. So you're creating a jam within Jamboard. So you can type on it. Now I'm going to talk about the typing. It's not text boxes like you would do in Google Slides, but you can type on it, annotate. You can insert images. You can insert animated GIFs. You can insert a whole bunch of different objects. You can collaborate. So we're not, well, I don't know if we'll have time to collaborate today, but you'll certainly, again, like I said, you can share it how you want. So I could give you a link to a Jamboard. We could all work on a Jamboard, and I'll show you an example of what that would look like in a little bit. Or you can just have it just as a one user or two users, whatever works for you. So like I said, you can share this app and assign in Google Classroom. So if you had an assignment built around a Jam, how you create an assignment and attach a Google Doc or Google Slide or whatever you're attaching to that assignment, you could attach a Jamboard to that, a jam to that as well. So you could give a blank jam, or you can have a template designed, assign that out in Classroom. Students could, depending on how you assign that, each get their own copy of that, work on it, submit it back to you. So it works the same way as if you were doing anything else in Google Classroom. And again, I always try to remind teachers, Jamboard is a tool. There's thousands and millions of tools out there. It's one that we have pretty much access to, so it is a good tool in that way. But you might find there are some limitations to maybe what some other apps do. So again, don't just use it for the sake of using it, but hopefully today you're going to find some good uses for that. So a few other considerations. So I did mention that the app is easier to use. You can freehand write on the app, and there's also letter recognition and shape recognition. So what I mean by that is I could draw like a freehand triangle, and it could be, the lines could be all sloppy. And I have some videos that explain that within the slide deck, which I'll share with you. And it'll smooth that out and make a nice shape for you. And same with writing, it will kind of recognize your writing and make that look nicer for you. So that's only available on the app. And sometimes just with using the app, using your finger to write freehand is a little bit easier. Using your mouse, I find it's harder to write that way. So that's why the app is a little bit better in that sense. So the only way you can add text boxes are through things called sticky notes. So there isn't a text box that you necessarily add like you would in a Google slide, and I'll demonstrate this in a second. So you have to put things through sticky notes that look kind of like those Post-it notes. There's no revision history, so keep that in mind. So if you are familiar with Google Docs and you're working on a Google Doc and partway through somebody erases the whole thing, you can go back in time and bring up an earlier version and bring back all your work. There isn't that in Jamboard. So that's something to keep in mind. If we all collaborate on a jam together and one of you decides to erase everything, if we're still in it, there is an undo button. I could undo your things, but if I wasn't there live with you and you decide to erase things, when I go back later, I wouldn't be able to get that, what we had worked on previously. So that's one little thing that Jamboard doesn't have yet. And In Jamboard, you could be working, you could fill up your frame. Those are kind of like the slides that you'll see. You only can do up to 20 frames on a jam, and you only can have 50 users at a time. That might never ever apply to you, but if you ever try to put out a jam and want a bunch of people to collaborate, you could, once you hit 50, you can't go above that. And like I said, you can assign and share this app in Google Classroom. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the interface of Jamboard, and then we're going to get you in here and start playing around here. One thing I do like about Jamboard, there's not a whole lot of buttons, which is great, especially if you want to use it, especially if you want to use it with students. In some ways, it might be limiting because there isn't a lot of features, but then on the other side of it, it's a little bit easier to use because you're not overwhelmed with everything that's on there. So again, I'm gonna go through this with all you in a second here. But again, you can change your backgrounds, but there's only certain backgrounds you can put in, and we'll look at that. There are some writing and erasing tools which we'll look at. Over on the left here, there's a sticky notes. That's how you're going to add text, and this is in here how you're going to add images. And along the top is where you add more frames. So again, frames are just the page that you see in front of you here, but once you fill that up, you can add a second page or second frame and keep going on that way. So we'll take a look at this in a second here. In this slide deck, which will be on the Summer Learning Academy website, I just have a couple of videos that explain a few things about the app. Because the app, you can actually embed Google files on the mobile version, which you can't do in the browser version. So I could bring up a Google Doc and you could annotate over it on the app. So there's a little video that explains that, and just a few little text options that are different in the app than on the browser version. So here are some examples of teachers during e-learning that I was kind of seeing on Twitter here. Diana, who's in this session, was doing something along math, and she kind of came to one of our open office hour sessions and was explaining it to me. Diana, feel free to put in the chat exactly what you ended up doing with it, because so long ago I can't remember. But then other things, you can do some math type questions. You can just do some brainstorming. There's some labeling here, so like a body systems, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Jamboard. And again, I'm going to share some examples with you here as well. This is just a way I've used it with teachers, where we just sort of did a brainstorming. So I was working with teachers, and we're looking at some promising practices around e-learning. And this was a group of 30 or 40 teachers, and they were just putting up these little sticky notes. So this is the text option that you have to write with. So you just sort of put a little sticky note up and you type in it. This was just one page. It actually scanned over several pages, but this was just a way that I could brainstorm with 30 or 40 teachers that we weren't all in the same room. We were all in our own homes. So this was just a neat way that I like to use Jamboard. So again, and here's a second page of that. And this is where somebody changed the background on that there as well. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to change screens for a sec. So I just want to show you Jamboard. So if you're looking to use Jamboard, it's a little bit hidden. I wouldn't say well, it could be hidden, I guess, but it's not, you don't find it in your drive under new. You have to go to the waffle icon, okay? So however you use your drive or whatever app you have open, if you go to the waffle icon, you can go down and you'll see Jamboard there. Okay, so I just want to show you a little bit about Jamboard, and then I'm going to share with you some examples, and I'm going to get you to go in and start playing around with some of those examples. So Jamboard essentially is this right here. It's your blank slate. You can really add and create whatever you want on it here. So I'll kind of go through some of the features with you. I mean, if you have it open as well, you can sort of play along, if you want to do that as well. One thing I will point out is you're going to see a button here that says open on a Jamboard. There's actually a physical board where you could project this that you see in front of you on a screen on a Jamboard. Kind of looks like a smart board essentially in a way. I'm not aware of any schools in Nova Scotia that have these, but that's just there that you could click on that button, and then what you do on your device would project right on the screen in front of the class. So that's what that's there. So if you click it, it won't really do much. So on your page here, you have a blank white page. again, I mentioned up here, I could zoom in if I found this too small to see. I can go in here and change a background. Now, as I said, there's only a few options you can pick from. So I can't go and find my own picture and make it a background. There's just a couple of colors. There's things like graph paper or whatever it might be. So you just kind of click it, and this is line paper, and it just shows up on your screen. So the background is really, you're just limited to these 6 or 7 options. Along the left here, these are all your tools, okay? So pretty much when you click on it, it'll sort of tell you what it is. The picture tells you what it is. So if you hover over it, it says what it is here. So this is a pen. You notice, again, like a lot of writing tools, there's a pen, there's a marker, there's a highlighter, a paintbrush, and you have some colors. So you don't have a whole palette of colors that you can pick from. There are just 6 colors there. So I can pick blue if I wanted to, and then I can start writing here. My screen's being a little laggy here. Oh, it's not, let me just clear that there and try that again. There we go. So as you see, I'm writing with the mouse, like I mentioned, and I find that harder. If I was doing this with my finger on the app, I'd be able to do this much better. Okay. So again, clear frame would clear this all. There's an eraser here. I can click the eraser and erase if I wanted to. Okay, that's what that does. This is just your pointer tool. Okay, so if you're pointing and highlighting things. And then down here is where you add your sticky notes. So that's the only way you can add text, and I'll just show you what that looks like here. So when I click the text, I get a sticky note. I get a few colors to choose from, or I could have no color. And basically what you do is you just write something. So this is a text box in Jamboard. I hit save. And basically that shows up on my screen. And I could click this and drag it and move it all around. I could resize it if I wanted to. There's even an option here to rotate it around if I want to do that. Then you'll notice there's 3 little dots here so for some more options. I could click that and I could edit my text if I misspelled something. I can make a duplicate of this. So if it's something you want to maybe each student to write in a text box, and instead of them having to go and find the text box or the sticky note, you could make copies of this and have it on the screen, or you can delete it completely. So if I just hit duplicate, just makes an exact copy of that. So that's handy sometimes if it's something you want to use over and over again. The last 2 options here are adding an image. So if I click add image, just like you would in a Google Doc or in a Google slide, you're going to have options where you want to find your image. You can search on Google. You can upload to your computer, upload from your computer, search your drive, if you're attached through Google Photos. So there's options in there of how you want to search an image. So again, I could just type something in here. On a nice sunny day, and basically an image that I want here, I could click on that and hit select, and it'll pop in on my jam. I can resize it. I can move it around. Might take a second or two to come in here. There you go. And again, now you can take your writing tool. So you can annotate over this. You can add text boxes, whatever you want to do. So you see my writing actually in this case goes over it. So I could write on this image. So that's how you can kind of integrate images and annotations in there as well. So that's adding an image. And the last one, this is just a little laser pointer. So all that does is just kind of gives you a little laser pointer to focus that lasts there for a second. Okay. So that's essentially what there is in Jamboard. If you're on the mobile app, you'll have another option down here that will show like stickers. You can add these little stickers on your screen. And then in the writing tools up top here, where you see the pens, you'll see another option here that will say assistive drawing tools. And that's where you can use your freehand writing and recognize that for you, or draw shapes. That's just another option that's in there. But everything else is essentially the same. The last thing I'll show you before we start jumping in here and playing is up top. So again, you have options to share. So I can click share, and just like you share any Google app, you can type somebody's name and share with them directly. You can copy a link and give that link out to people. It's really works the same way. Just close that out there. And also up top, you have these 3 little dots, and that just gives you some more options here. Again, if you want to rename your file, you can download it as a PDF, you can save it as an image, remove it is removing completely, or making a copy. Right? You can check for updates as well. I checked today, there wasn't any updates, but these are just sort of some of the other options you have in here. And that's essentially it for Jamboard. So what I'll do is I'll pause for 1 second here, see if there are any questions, and then I'm going to get you to go into a Jamboard with some examples I have here, and this is going to be your own copy to use. But I will stop here for a second.
Mario, there are a few questions here.
Sure. Yeah.
So Kendra asked, I apologize for the street noise. Will the browser version eventually be updated to have the same features as the mobile version?
Not that I saw on the latest Google updates. There were a few options for being able to add your own background in either version, but I didn't see anything. I did see about text boxes not necessarily being sticky notes, but in terms of the freehand, I did not see that as an update on the browser version.
All right. And next question is from Gina, who asks, is there a difference between student view and teacher view?
Nope, looks the exact same.
Yeah. And Gina also asks, is there a way to see which student or individual has what they have written or added to a Jamboard?
No, that's another, yeah. So because there's no revision history, yeah, if I shared one with all of you and you're all writing on it, I can't go in and see like if Diana did something or Gina did something. It's just, it's just whatever's there is there. Yeah, I have no way of seeing that.
Okay, and Donna asks, can you duplicate the slide or just sticky notes?
Oh, yes, I didn't show that. Yes. Yes, you can duplicate the whole slide. So, yeah, I didn't show that. So let me just go back 1 sec here. I totally forgot about that. It's going to present my screen again here. So I'm just going to go back. So as I mentioned, the maximum is 20 frames. So up top, I have 20 frames. So I can't, you notice this button on the right lets me add more frames. I can't do that right now. So I can click underneath it, and then I get all my frames kind of show up. So I have some blank ones here. So what I'll do is I'll delete this one. So I can just hit those 3 dots, hit delete. And now if I want to duplicate this frame that we just created, I can hit those 3 dots, and then there's an option to duplicate. And then I can do that, and now I'll have 2 of the exact same. But I have to have less than 20 to be able to do that. So you notice now I have 2 of the same slide there. And now I actually got a little pop-up down the bottom left saying I can't create any more frames. So, and then you can kind of scroll through and see all the frames that you've created. So this one here, I'm going to actually share with you. And I have some examples in there of different jams that you can kind of look at. Maybe I'll just quickly show some of them. So you can kind of, this is going to be your own copy. I'm going to post a link in the chat that's going to force you to make a copy, and that'll be your copy to use. But there's different math problems. There's some literacy problems in there. Just some general questions in here, like what would you rather? You know, you can post questions to students. Would you rather be a famous gamer or a YouTuber? And they can add a sticky note and explain why they would pick one or the other, or if they pick neither. So anyways, I have a bunch of different ones in here that you can use and play around with. And I will mention there are 2 of them that were I am bored. These are not my original ideas. So these first couple here are from a teacher, Katie Pollard in HRCE, who created some ones for Math Essentials that she shared with me. So I've posted them in there because I really like them. It's about measuring area. And there's another one there from somebody I saw on Twitter. And there's one of them, it's a sort of a check-in, a student check-in system that you can kind of play around with there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop sharing.
While you're doing that, Mary, I'll just put up the next question. Gina asks, can you assign a Google Jamboard like you do a Google slide deck or doc in Google Classroom?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, how you assign it, you can either say make it view only, or students edit all on one, or make a copy for each student. Yeah, you can do the same thing.
And Tammy, I'll just answer that question for you. He clicked on the little down arrow right at the very top. There's just and that expands the menu.
All right. So in the chat, I posted a link to a Jamboard that has a couple blank slides so you can play around with, and then a couple of examples there. If I did it correctly, you should be able to click on that, and it'll say that you have to make a copy of it. So then that'll force you to make a copy. And I just want to give you a little bit of time to play around with it. And then we're here, Chris and I, to answer any questions you might have. And then we'll kind of maybe talk about maybe some ways that you might see be able to integrate it into your classroom. So we'll give you maybe 10 minutes to kind of play around a little bit there. Have a look at some of the jams that are there. And yeah, if you're having trouble making a copy, if something's going on there, let me know and we'll try to sort that out too. So now, Chris, this is the part of the recording I feel like people are working. I should be doing something. Because then it's just kind of blank. Maybe I'll go through my slides while these are
you could
being talked about. Or
play some music.
Yeah.
Lisa does ask this question. So this might be for after. Can you show how you can make someone make a copy of the Jamboard?
Yeah, totally. I'll just share my screen. I'm just going to talk about each of the slides as we're still recording here. All right, so these are the examples that everybody's working on right now. So these are just some different ways you can use Jamboard, but there's millions of other possibilities. This one here is just, I'm going to go to my pointer here. This one here is just measuring, this is a Math Essentials course, and they're measuring shapes. And so they have a virtual ruler, and they can go through and they could, measure the area, perimeter, whatever they're working on. Because these can all be rotated around. So if you had to measure on an angle and different things like that. So they're just, the next few slides are just a couple of different shapes that have been created here. So rectangles, squares, things like that, different shapes, pentagon, other rectangles and squares. This one here is just a math problem. I actually took this off one of the, I want to give the proper name to this. Chris, help me out with the work that came through the flyers. What were they calling it?
Yeah.
There was an exact name for that, but I can't remember it offhand right now. So this was just in one of the weeks early on. I just kind of grabbed this. It just says find the mistake in Laura's work. So the student could freehand write, put one of those sticky notes in if they want to just talk about where the error is. And then there's an option to create their own blooper and have somebody else solve it. So this is a way students can collaborate and talk about their math and how they're sort of solving the problem and how they discover the mistake.
Learning packages.
Yes, thank you. Learning packages.
Yeah, it wasn't me, it was Jennifer. So.
Oh, thank you.
Another question from Denise says, where does the jam get saved?
Yeah, I'll so yeah, that's the thing. So maybe I'll wait for that when I bring everybody back. Can you remind me to answer that? Because it's a little bit different.
Yes, I will.
Than your other files. This is just a question I already went over there. Again, here's another one, 5W. So I just kind of put a sticky note of the three little pigs, but it can be any story. Talk about the who, the what, the when, where, and why. And they could, again, write in there, put a sticky note on top of it, and answer the question. This one here for lower elementary, so this is just finding images. So using the image option, or they find something in their house that's red, blue, green, etc. So they just find the image and resize it to place it on one of those options there. But you can post any questions, something that's round, something that's rough, smooth, whatever. This one here is a literacy type one, making up a brand new word, and there's a few parameters around that. Again, all I did was this was online in one of those at-home learning packages, and I just did a screen sort of grab of that. And again, if that's too small, I can always make that larger. I could have also typed this out in a sticky note, but because this was quite a bit of text here, I'd have to make my sticky note quite large, so I just sort of took it as is from there. Another math one, find the next two terms in the following pattern. So they could, again, write in the numbers, do their own down the bottom. Doesn't have to be numbers. They could do images and make their own patterns, whatever it might be. Another math one here, which one, tell me if it's true or false and prove that it's true or false. So they would explain why it's true or false. Again, so this is the one I was sent to me. So using Jamboard as a check-in. So you could do a couple things here. I could line up sticky notes along the bottom, and students grab a sticky note and drag it to the side. If we're all collaborating on one, they could maybe just use the freehand and put a check mark or a happy face, whatever side they're on. So just little different types of check-ins you can use with Jamboard as well. So I should probably mention this one here. So this one here, I just have an image I found of a plant. It just says label the parts of the plant, and I just thought I'd be a little bit creative. And all I did was I just searched up an animated GIF of rain. And basically all I'm doing is just placing one image over top of the other to kind of give it a little bit more life. So that's essentially what I'm doing there. So just two images laid on top of one another in Jamboard, which you can do. Again, another check-in. So again, if you're going through a lesson on Jamboard, you can have students drag on their own Jamboard where they are, different spots. So just a little strategy here, so they can use it at the beginning of a lesson, partway through, at the end, and they can, if they're getting the lesson or still need support, just a way for them to check in, and then you could sort of see where they're at by the end of a lesson. And I think that's the last one there. We'll give you another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll come back because I know there's a couple more questions, and we'll talk about where you find different jams and things like that. Most of the frames are blank. Is that so? Should only be the last couple that are blank there. Oh, Dot's saying it's still loading. Ooh, I wonder if that could be, I don't know if that's a Wi-Fi thing or not. I don't know if others are having the same issue. Yeah, it's a lot of good questions here.
Katrina, I just loaded that. It must be kind of on your end. Hit refresh, and it should give it a go again. Mind you,
all right. Well, yeah. Sorry, Chris.
No, never mind. I'm just looking at all the questions here. I will let you go, and then I'll make.
Oh yeah, maybe we'll come back. Maybe we'll bring it back. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then there are a lot of questions here, so I don't want to leave these lingering too long here. So hopefully you're back here. You can still leave your jam open because I'll stick around as well, and if there are any other questions. So Chris, help me out here. Where are we at with the questions here?
So there was the one you're going to come back to. Donna, sorry, it wasn't Donna. It was Gina asked, can you order those pictures? Send one to the back, send one to the front.
Not exactly. It's the order you bring them in. So in the case where I had that flower and rain, I had to make sure I put the flower in first, and then the rain went on top of it. If you do it the other way, then I had the rain first and the flower on top of it, the rain, you wouldn't be able to see the rain. So you just have to bring them in the order that you want. And then if you don't have in the right order, you'd have to delete and kind of go through the steps again. So yeah, there's no way of sending to front or pushing things in the back.
Donna asks how you would like to how you got that to force a copy.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to share my screen for that one, and I think the other one was saving. Let's go. Keep my screen shared for that one too. All right. So there was a question about how I forced you to get a copy. So this is just my jam. This is the jam that you received, but this was my copy, and I don't want you to. I could have. One way I could have shared it was to make it view only, and then on your end, you could make a copy of that. That's one way of doing it. But just to kind of save that step, all you do is at the end here, where it says viewer and whatever else there, you just got to type in copy. And now this link, I have to share this link out. So all I did was, once I did that, I copied and paste this, and I put that in the chat, and that forces you to do a copy. You can do the same with docs or slides. You can just change the last bit, whatever it says there. So this one here is a little bit different just the way, because I have it shared. I have to delete all this part. I don't know if you're seeing that or not, where it says edit, blah, blah, blah. I can delete that, type in the word copy, and then this slide deck would force you to make a copy to be able to view it. So that's what I did there. And there was a question around saving. Where are these saved at? So yeah, so a couple things with Jamboard. They don't save to your main drive. Like if you create a Google Doc right now and you didn't put it in any folder, it would appear in your Google Drive. So Jamboards don't appear the same way. So there's a couple of spots you can find them. One is if it's something you did recently, you could check your recent. One thing I do is I do create a folder to try to save them. The only other way you can sort of find them is, again, going to your waffle icon. And if I go down to Jamboard, it will show all of my jams. So it's a little bit different. And so it should load up there as well. All right. And so you can see it just like any other doc. And then from here, you can create a new one as well. I can click this plus sign and create a new. Just being a little slow for me. Oh, there we go. I created a new one. Are there any other questions in there?
Gina asked, does Jamboard show an option when adding it to an assignment on Google Classroom? So I would assume, Gina, you mean the drop down.
Yeah, no. So when you create your assignment and you hit the like add to it, you have to go through your drive. So it's like drive is one of your options. Click drive, and then you'd have to find it in your drive there. I don't know if anyone else. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, if I've missed any questions, I think I'm up to date. If there are any other questions that I missed, please put them in the chat box. Or if you got a new question.
Yeah. Or if anyone wants to share if they've used Jamboard or find ways to that they think they could use it. Create a jam is not showing up in my recents or in the Jamboard waffle. That might be Marissa. Maybe refresh sometimes that. And if not, let us know. I don't know. It should be there. Donna, I'm not sure the question there. Only people can add view. Can I post this? So yeah, so maybe here I'll show you. I think I know what your question is there. I'm going to go back to presenting here. So if you wanted to take the link, so a couple things. Oh, sorry, that's my slides. Here's my jam here. So if I click share, a couple ways you can share here. So yeah, and the share box has been updated in the last month or so. So again, yeah, if you want to just get the link so you can post it in Class Dojo or Seesaw or something. So down here, so up here is where you would type in individuals' names. Down here is where you can get the link. So right now, if I click on change, you have a few options here. So right now, and it will look different. If it's your first time sharing, it might say people within Genespes or something. So I can change that to make it restricted, so only I see it, nobody else. People within our Genespes or Sepni domain, or anyone with link. So if I wanted this to be open to parents, I can click anyone with link. And then again, it depends what I want them to do. So do I want them to be a viewer or an editor? So remember I mentioned there is no in-between option as a commenter, so viewer, editor. So if you want your parents to see it, you would just leave a view, and then you have to copy this link right now. So that changes, that's the link right there. If I copy this link, then I could paste this anywhere, and anybody will be able to view this jam. I think that's answering your question, but if not, let me know.
Another question is, can I copy and paste the ruler from your Jamboard to a new one?
No, you can't. So, no. That's one thing, yes. With Jamboard, you can't. And you can't even, no, even between your own jams, you can't copy and paste. You can't, well, actually, yes and no, I guess. You can't copy and paste that exact image. What you could do is, if you can use a tool that can crop that, like a screen grab, you could take that and copy and paste that in another jam. That's what I do sometimes with some of the different shapes and things like that. Yeah, but you can't, yeah, with Jamboard, you can't just right click copy or control copy and paste it into another one, unfortunately.
Another question is, can Jamboard itself be embedded in Google Slides?
Not that I'm aware. I don't want to say no, impossible, but I've never tried. I don't think so. I think your only option, the only way to, if you want them to work on it, it'd have to be a link. You couldn't, because you do have options to make it into a PDF or an image. So you could embed that in a Google slide, but if you want them to actually work on it, you'd have to put the link in there. Lots of great questions here. So I don't know if others have, hopefully you found some ways that you could use it. Again, depending on your region, hopefully it is opened up for students. And again, if not, certainly we can kind of put you in the contact to kind of look into that and kind of maybe find out why it's not. It's definitely open for teachers. So yeah, hopefully it's a tool that you do see some benefits, and as updates come along with new Google products all the time, hopefully it'll just get better and better and be able to find better and easier uses for it.
Mario, I've got a question for you about this. If somebody wanted to give feedback to Google on Jamboard, do you know where that is?
I think there's actually an option right in Jamboard, actually. So let's try that. And so there's another question about if it's open in South Shore. I am not 100% sure for students. I know Jim Dexter was looking at that. This was when we were talking in June. I don't know what ended up happening with that, but I could certainly find out for you. So if you could, yeah, so right in Jamboard, there's these three little dots. And when you click that right within here, there's send feedback. I've never actually done this before. There you go. Have feedback. We'd love to hear it. But please don't share sensitive information, questions. Or you can try the support. Yeah, so you can even include a screenshot. So yeah, if I wanted to say, hey, is there a way to reorder images? I could take a screenshot of my image I have here, and maybe I want them to be able to reorder the images. Yeah, so it's right built within it. Move that there.
Mario.
Yes.
Sorry. When I did Jamboard with my class, we did win, lose, or draw as a way of introducing it because then they could share the boards at the same time, and it was really low stakes
Oh, yeah.
rather than trying to introduce something that was high stakes, and it basically took a whole period
Yeah.
just for them to play with. But once they got it, we used it
Yeah.
for math, but it just made it kind of a fun introduction, and it worked well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great use. Yeah. I've also seen there's actually a template out there. I don't have it here. There's actually like a, I don't know if it's Connect 4 or something. There's some game you can do on Jamboard as well that I've seen. So yeah, that's a great way to introduce it, Lucky.
Okay. You need
Any other thoughts or questions? If not, this recording will be posted at some down the road on the Summer Learning Academy site. I can actually share this slide. This slide deck will also be on the site, but I can share it right now. Let me just copy the link here. I'll make sure I have my share settings right because I was playing around with it a little bit. It should be okay here. I'll post that in the chat here. Yes, Maggie, that is a workaround there. Yeah, so if you put the image in and then have that image as a hyperlink, yeah. So that's the link to the slideshow there. And within it are some of the embedded videos as well that give you a little bit more information on the app because we didn't actually look at the app today, but that's an option there as well. So again, I'm going to stick around. Chris, I'm sure is going to stick around a little bit too. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, enjoy your afternoon, whether you're in Nova Scotia or somewhere else.